All right. Good morning. Good morning, SEA Peace
Morning.
Filled. How is everybody? Good morning. I have a guest with me, as you can see. I'm really excited about this particular interview because it's something that I think we all need a little bit more of, and that is being able to focus and concentrate. We know that there are so many distractions these days, and being able to concentrate and focus allows us to be more productive and more fulfilled in life on a whole. So, for those of you who are new to the SEA Peaceful Lives, my name is Shelly Ann Edwards Barron, and I'm a creative writing specialist. I work with students at all ages, helping them understand how to write well. Particularly with the youngsters, I do something called multisensory learning, which covers the learning in the writing classroom through interaction, play, innovation, science, art, drama, because we're getting all our senses involved in the learning process because that helps us retain more information. Now, my guest today could probably tell me a little bit more about that because he is a neuroscientist. Is that the preferred term
Yeah,
for
but
what
I,
you do?
I like neuroinnovator because
Mm.
my emphasis is on neuroinnovation. So I'll take that if you don't mind giving me today.
Okay, so neuro innovator. And we will talk a lot about his innovation today, something that I think would be so useful to parents, teachers, and adults because I'm going to be doing it myself as well. So we are talking today with Kheston Walkins of Allegory. I don't know if you've heard about Allegory before, but you should have because we have been posting in the group and you should have seen a bit more about Allegory and what they do. But guess what? We have one of the founders today who's going to tell us all about what Allegory is, what services they offer, and how it can benefit you and your child or your students. So, welcome to the SEA Peaceful Group and SEA Peaceful Live. I'm Keston, and please tell us a little bit about yourself and Allegory.
Yeah. So first of all, thanks a lot for having me on. I've actually been looking forward to this for a while, so I'm very excited about the conversation we're going to be having today. So you know my name already, and my background is in neuroscience, particularly medical neuroscience, and I'll go into more details of that just now. But I want to say why I do what I do and why Allegory exists because I think that's really, really important.
Yes,
And
yes.
we exist to give people power over themselves. I think one of the greatest things that you could give to a child or to your child is self-control and the ability to regulate themselves because once they're able to do that, they can have actually champion their lives. And Allegory is a representation of that why, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we say what Allegory does, Allegory is a neuro innovation company and we build and design innovations in education and other industries using neuroscience, data, and artificial intelligence. We've worked with over 700 clients over the last 2.5 years, 3 years or so, and we've collected over 1.7 or 1.8 billion points of data. And that all that data and informatics goes into developing our products and services. And we've had, oh God, I don't know, we have like almost 7,000 hours, contact hours of training with people.
Wow.
A lot. It's a lot. And that
Mm-hmm,
long graph,
mm-hmm.
that long-winded thing just tells like where our emphasis is. Now, about my personal academic background, so I did medical neuroscience at the University of Sussex in Brighton, England, came back to Trinidad,
Mm.
did research in epilepsy and anxiety, and then did postgrad work in, what is it? Yeah, postgrad work in molecular genetics and data-driven cancer diagnosis. That's my emphasis. So if I have to make that a very
Wow.
short statement,
Yes.
it would be emphasis in practical neuroscience
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and data.
Yeah, yes, please make it short. Make it short for us because but I think
Yeah.
what is fascinating to me is that concept of being a neuro innovator. So it's
Mhm.
not just about studying, the brain and how it works and how it affects, what affects it and so on. It
Yeah.
is about creating systems and products and processes, services that would help users develop their brain and gain control, as you said.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's the core thing for it because it, having focus is not an accident. It requires something very deliberate. You have to decide on it. Otherwise, you're dragged around by emotions and feelings or whatever is interesting. And life doesn't
Mm-hmm.
permit us to only do what's interesting, you see. So I would say yes, big time.
Okay, so and I'm glad you said that because one of my questions, I know there are people who can focus well,
Hmm.
there are people who struggle to focus, and then there are some people who just can't focus. And
Yeah.
between those groups, what we usually find is that the people who can focus well don't generally understand why the others can't.
Yes. Yes. So
So, mhm,
I like what you say there, right? Because I'll take it from the parent and child dynamic, right? And then we can probably talk about teachers and students after. But parents and child, I can ask this question very comfortably. I know that almost every single parent has said this. Child, just focus and do your work. Like that's been said so many times, right? And if you
guilty.
yeah, and then if you ask them, their parents told them the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, but no one taught them how to focus, and therefore they cannot pass that on to their children. So we've ended up in this situation where we've asked people for the result without teaching them how to do it. And that
Yes.
creates frustration for everybody, right? That creates frustration because when you want a result but no process, it's confusing. So the parents, what they try to do, they try to cajole or they try to threaten the children, right? So the
Mm-hmm.
fear arouses the children, so they focus. So the parents think, well, okay, I'd just put fear in them. But guess what? That's not sustainable. And you're coming up to
Mm-hmm.
exams and you're thinking, how am I going to get my child to relax when my only tool is fear? You see?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we've gone into this situation where we've created this combative kind of system that actually breaks the child and most importantly wrecks the family relationship. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
is there's more to it than just academics. There's lots of kind of spill on effects.
Oh, yes, because there's a relationship involved, and anything that affects that, remember, this relationship is a long-term relationship. It's not you're in my classroom for a year and then you're gone. This is
Yeah.
my child, and parents supporting their children at home is one of the
Mhm.
key factors in educational and success in general.
Yeah.
So, what is our relationship like, and how do we foster that relationship related to focus? Now, I would like to understand, and I'm sure our listeners would love to understand, what exactly is focus and concentration. I mean, you
Mm.
mentioned just now
Yeah.
that, it's a deliberate, intentional thing. And even though we kind of do it, most people don't really understand what it is and how they developed the habits of focusing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. There's a difference, but it's very subtle. Like you can mistake one for the other. So my impression of what it is, so focus can be reliant in interest
Mm,
or determination.
mm-hmm.
Concentration is determination is required for concentration. Do you understand it? You have to
Ah,
actively concentrate.
yes.
Focus, you don't have to actively do. It happens with your children all the time. You take up
Mm-hmm.
their phone, and our parents always say this. I wish my child could focus the way it is focus when they're watching video games or, but
Yes.
true. So it can't focus can be passive, right? So
Mm-hmm.
as long as the mind goes into a particular state, which we have measured thousands of times, and we know exactly how to teach someone to do it, as long as your mind goes into that state, you are considered focused. You see it,
Okay,
right?
okay.
Once you put that state into an activity, you are concentrating.
Hmm.
Does that make sense? So some people think that they have to stare at the book, but what you are doing is you are concentrating, but you're not really focused. So you might ask the question, well, are you really concentrating? What you're doing is staring hard.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing, right?
But that's what we call focus. Look at the book, pay attention,
Yeah.
open your book and read.
I'll do you one better. What we really call focus or concentration is muscle contractions. I'll explain what I mean.
Oh
I'll explain
my,
what I mean.
okay.
You tell your
Mm-hmm.
child, pull yourself together, even when you were small, like people in the office.
Mm-hmm.
Something comes up that seems like the boss coming or they're aggressive.
Yeah.
You tighten your buttocks and you straighten your back. That happens to everybody. Everybody. So what we've done is we take said, well, a mental state is a
Mm-hmm.
muscular contraction. You see it, right?
Because it's visible.
Exactly. And that's a mistake that we make because we tell a child to focus and we say, you see, okay, he's focusing. No, he's not. He is in a rigid, unhappy state. You see?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because when he's playing the video games or watching YouTube, he is focused. He is in a relaxed, happy state. Focus does not require us to be in pain or uncomfortable.
Wow.
You see it? Your brain becomes
Yeah.
a collaborator. And I like to make this analogy because it sharpens the emotions about it. That concept of deliver without instruction, or it comes from responsibility but no power. So you're telling the person to deliver, but they don't have the power to deliver. And then you punish
Mm-hmm.
them for not
Mm-hmm.
delivering. That sounds very, very similar to what happened during slavery. Right? So
Wow.
that has made its way into the education system. And guess what? It's not just in the education system. We become our own slave masters. Oh, well, just focus, and it hits in your
Yeah,
head. And
and that's the thing. You said something just now that I don't know, it was just like an epiphany light bulb kind of moment.
tell me,
You said that focus is a relaxed, happy state. You don't
it's
when
a
you're
low energy state.
so when you're in pain, we grew up. I mean, I'm thinking back in my own life, and we associate being focused with a certain amount of well, pain, yes, but distress is the word I want to use.
Effort and distress. We
Yeah,
describe it as being fatiguing.
yes,
But what that
yes.
is just concentration without focus. That's what it is.
Hmm.
It's
So that
concentration
when,
without focus is just frustration.
okay, and you're saying this is something that we can learn to focus
Mhm.
without the distress and the pain associated with it.
Easily. And time measured in minutes. Time measured
Wow.
in minutes, you can get start to build and develop that. Because the skill is already innate in us. Right? It
Hmm.
happens different ways. We look at the children watching TV, but your husband, when you're watching the game, you don't hear you calling him. When you doing something on your phone and your child talking to you, you don't hear them. It even happens with pain. You have a pain, you get a cut on your hand, but you're going through your day and you're typing on your desk and you're doing your work and you forget the pain. Because what you've done is you've shifted your focus to something else.
Hmm.
See it,
Hmm.
right? So focus is actually really, really important. It's, in my opinion, the most valuable currency on the planet. It's not money, it's attention. Once you have attention, that's the reason why we have the mega structures on the planet. That's the reason why we have society the way it is, and we've been able to grow our race to almost 8 billion. It's because we've been able to focus on ways on how to sustain and be happy as fast as possible. Make sense?
Hmm.
So
Hmm. Hmm.
the reason why I say it this way is because a lot of people just think they narrow to academics. But it's the work
Yes.
that we do, it's about the entire child's life. So you'll get the better grades, and we'll come to talk about that later on, I'm sure. But you'll get the better grades, but you get the better grades, but you have a child that always anxious, irritable,
Hmm.
can't
Hmm.
control themselves, resents you, and bet your bottom dollar more than oh, more than if not about 90% of our mothers have a lot of guilt for their child because they don't know how to help them. And the only way they feel like they can help them is to threaten them. And they carry that guilt around for a long time. When the child
Hmm.
is 30
Hmm.
and 5, the child's resenting them and they have no relationship, all because they had a childhood that had poor parental relationship. You know what I
And
mean?
you mentioned, yeah, well, to clarify the relationship, I mean, parents do the best that they can, but when they don't know what to do, even their best may not give,
Yeah.
the right results, and it could lead into all kinds of things. So, which is why I'm really happy that you're taking the time from your busy schedule to chat with us today, because we have the opportunity of finding out a few strategies that we could implement to reduce that anxiety. Because the viewers who are here, who were able to make the time this morning, I mean, I said it in my own life, and we have people in the comments agreeing. We were taught that focus is associated with pain and anxiety.
Yeah.
And that's across the board. Anybody who sits and really thinks about it and goes back into their own life would feel I mean, sometimes even just thinking about it now brings up the anxiety and the trauma that we had
Hmm.
back then that, related to the whole situation. And what I have found, particularly with writing, because I'm a writing instructor, and regardless of what age I work with, there is anxiety related to writing. And
Yes.
it seems that the older the person is the more the anxiety is, as it's stronger and the deeper it is.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's been festering for years.
Hmm.
Just yesterday I was speaking to an author, and she said, um I I can't really write, but I have something that I want to say, and I'm not very articulate, and she's explaining this to me perfectly well
Hmm.
in very articulate language, but she's telling me that she's not articulate. And
Yeah.
I'm listening to her and I'm thinking, I said, you realize that you just explained that to me in very articulate sentences, right? So I
Yeah.
don't think it's that you're not articulate. It's just that the writing scares you
Yeah. That's right. So I
because there's the anxiety associated with it. Yeah, I know.
absolutely.
Sorry, I'm getting excited, and I
No,
know you're
and
excited as
it's
well. So we
very
have to
important
woo.
because it manifests. Wait, that's performance anxiety, right? It
Mm-hmm.
manifests there. It will manifest in the child with exams, right? So what happens
Yes.
oftentimes is the child performs very fine during the term, but when the exam comes, they do poorly, right? So you have a child who is extremely competent but can't regulate, and they perform poorly. That's why we say our education system's emphasis is on vocation, but if they
Yes.
don't close the focus gap, you end up in trouble. And you describe something there that I think is real important, that thing about language. And I want to say two things about that. That desire, what she's experiencing is frustration because there's desire in her to
Yes.
do something. And there's a book that I was reading, really great book, and it was talking about the desire is power seeking expression. You
Oh, I
understand?
love that. I'm gonna write
Desire
that down.
is power seeking expression. So you have a child who goes and sits by a piano or the pan, and they're knocking the pan, and they're so frustrated because what they want to come out of them or come out of their engagement with this pan is not coming out. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a desire and there's the power, but it needs to be expressed. And what happens in our childhood a lot of times is that we subdue, in some cases, we quench that, or that was quenched for us as children. So when we were desiring to express ourselves, now you're seeing it, right? When we
Yep.
were desiring to express ourselves, the power was taken away. So all you left is with frustration. You
Mm-hmm.
see it? Because
Mm-hmm.
power without an outlet will always lead to frustration all the time.
Yeah.
So So that's why it's important for the children to be able to express themselves. And guess what? That continues on into the other sections of their life where they carry on conversation. Most of the people who have children, oh, sorry, not most, a lot of the parents who have children, the child cannot talk for more than 20 seconds about anything. How are you going to get that child to write 2 pages as an essay?
Mm-hmm.
You see it?
Mm-hmm.
So there's real world parts, and then you say, well, why not? Why are you only getting 7 out of 24 in creative writing or whatever the number is, right? Why are you getting that? It's because you stop them from expressing themselves. So the part I'll say this bit and we can move on. But there's a part of the brain that processes language, and there's a part of the brain that processes emotions. Those two, anybody who learns how to translate emotions in any modality, doesn't just have to be writing, they excel in life. Let's go through some
Mm-hmm.
examples.
Mm-hmm.
Artists. The most successful artists are able to make their audience feel because they have put their feeling into the object. The most amazing singers, right, have
Mm-hmm.
been able to put either the, the the wobbling or the control of the voice, the emotions into that, or the actual words. You see it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it is dangerous and pernicious for us as parents to stop our children from expression, i.e., connecting the emotional part to some other part. And language is
Yes.
one of the earliest things that they learn. You see it, right?
And the thing with language, sorry for interrupting, but the
No,
thing
it's
with
okay.
language is and communication is that that is so fundamentally part of who we are as human beings
Mm-hmm.
that when that is interrupted and that is not allowed to be expressed effectively, that's where you find people saying, I'm stupid because I can't speak, or I'm stupid because I can't write well, because we associate being able to communicate well with intelligence.
Yeah, and the very parents that they resented, they become to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Mm-hmm.
for me is the part that is really, really dangerous, right? So what we can do is to try, if there's, I mean, I know there's parents watching, there are lots of things that you can do to help improve creative writing, and there's some really simple things. You're a creative writing specialist, so I'll defer to some of that to you, right? But what we found is that if we help the child to connect or activate both the emotional part of their brain and the language part of their brain, they tend to be able to to converse better and create language better. And some really cool ways to do that would be, hey, play with flour. That might seem like a weird thing. Wet flour.
Yes,
Wet
please
flour.
explain that a little
Yeah,
more.
let them cook.
Mm-hmm.
Let them prepare things. And the wet flour, ask them, describe what I feel. I don't really like it. It's gooey. Oh, I love how it feel. And you rub some on the forehead, they get vexed. There's a mess. But guess what? The child's able to communicate what they're feeling and experiencing. So you end up in a play situation, start to do
Mm-hmm.
integration between the two parts of the brain so they start to talk. So now
Yes.
when you say, hey, tell me how you're feeling, the child has already had these competence events of expressing themselves. And those competence events make them more willing to express themselves and engage later on. And that's not something that just happened in a day, right?
No,
It's happening
it needs to
right
happen over
away.
time.
Something
And
over time, yeah.
yeah, and as you mentioned that this is why applying multisensory instruction in the writing classroom
Yes.
makes sense and why it works.
Yep.
Because when I do classes and we do science experiments, like the baking soda, vinegar, volcano, we
Mm-hmm.
do slime, we
Yeah.
do all sorts of different things, and parents, they know the child is having fun, but sometimes I see the looks and they wanna. So it's like, how exactly is that related to writing? How are you gonna get them to?
Yeah.
But I'm so happy that you
Now you know
explained it.
why. Now you
Yeah,
know why.
I'm
Yeah.
so happy that you explained it in a really clear and simple way. It's about connecting that emotion and activating the creativity so that they can express themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
once they build confidence in that, the expression will continue and it will translate. So, of
Yep.
course, yes, they need to know the grammatical foundations and all those things, but they could know all of that and still not be able to express themselves.
That's right. That's
So,
right.
activating that is absolutely important. So, the art and the drama, and let's read a poem, draw how you feel about it, paint how you feel about it,
Mm-hmm.
explain to me how that represents what you just read. Those kinds of
Yeah.
things.
See that last thing you said there? Explain how that what that means to you from what you just read is one of the most difficult things for students to do
Yes.
because they can't communicate the relevance. It's called abstractive reason, right? The ability to
Mm-hmm.
take something and make it relevant to you. That what you've done is digested it for yourself, and
Yep.
not every child can do that. As a matter of fact, a lot of adults can't do that because that was a deficit in their childhood, right? And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's super important that just what you said there, because once a child figures that out, they'll write better.
Yes.
Guaranteed, right?
Yep.
Guaranteed.
Yep. So tell me, so we spoke about, you said, play with flour, create something, cook, do
Mm-hmm,
something
mm-hmm.
in the kitchen. What
Yeah.
else can parents do? And um in a case where I know we have a number of teachers who they look at the live, they look at the replay, they may be in class now, but they would also be interested in something that they can do in the classroom to help their students develop better concentration
Yeah. So I like that
and
what you've said.
focus. Focus,
Um,
that's the word, right?
yeah, focus. So Allegory definitely has a solution, and I'm going to demo that in a little bit. It's something that you can get access to, and the effect is very fast. We can talk about that a little later on. But
Hmm.
there's some key things, right, that will be extremely helpful. And I'm going to use an analogy to kind of make it very clear. I love analogies,
Okay.
I love telling stories. So you have money in your bank account, and you know that there's some payments that have to be made. So you're not exactly sure what is left in there, and you go over to pay for something. There's a little bit of tension in you. If you know you have way more, there's no tension. So
Mm-hmm.
the key thing to take away from that is that there needs to be equal to an excess of resources. And when I say equal to an excess of resources, I mean in this body is the resource that we have. We have nothing else. You see what I'm saying, right? It's in
Mm-hmm.
here. So
Mm-hmm.
your body needs to have all the resources in order to deliver. If it does not, you're going to end up with fear and frustration, just like with your bank account, right? So they need to be hydrated because that's how the body moves the blood and moves the nutrients and takes away the things that that are spent, the toxins and the metabolites and so on. That's what it uses to do that. Hydration. Now, the
Mm-hmm.
other thing is circulation. You need to make sure the blood is moving around the body, not all the time, right? Because when they're sitting, they can't do that. But ahead of the class, just say, okay, here's what, guys, and this doesn't necessarily work for all students, of course not, but it's helpful, especially if they've done a series of learning. What's happened is a lot of the blood is around their brain,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because the brain's being is burning energy, so the body has to supply the blood, so it takes blood away from where it's not needed to where it is needed. That's just a natural thing, right? Because we have a fixed amount of blood,
Yes, yes, yes.
right? So what is helpful is to do a little bit of physical activity because it moves the blood away from the brain for a little bit. Not all of the blood, obviously, right? But it moves it away so the mind gets a little time to rest. You see it? And what also happens in that time of exercise, their focus moves away from processing and thinking and thinking and thinking. It goes
Mm-hmm.
towards proprioception and movement, right? So that's another thing that's very helpful. So movement's great. And I also talk about hydration. What you feed on is very important. Now remember I talk about that thing with resources, right? If you
Yes, yes, yes.
if you have a glut of not useful materials, you're going to end up in a terrible situation. All right, I'll explain that another way. If the child consumes lots of sugary drinks and snacks, what you're going to end up having is their blood sugar is going to spike.
Mm-hmm.
If they have a banana, their blood sugar goes up much more gradually. The body says, oh my goodness, there's so much sugar. What do I do? It tells them to move,
Mm-hmm.
and it also causes insulin production or insulin release. So then what happens is the blood sugar now starts to fall rapidly, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you end up in a
Mm-hmm.
situation where they have a huge buzz and then they crash because the body's trying to figure out how to get the right amount of sugar so that they can function. The other part is
Yes.
imagine syrup. It moves slower than water. So you have a situation where you actually affect the circulatory system. So the only way
Oh.
that they can get activation is an increased blood flow because they want that. They don't realize they want that, is to make trouble. And they want to make trouble.
Well, to move around and to release
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the what's
But
being
we
pent up
describe it as
inside.
making trouble, right? So they go on and
Yeah.
they bother a student or they bother a teacher and they say, Miss, and always raising up their hand. You understand? And they say, "Well, Miss, and they say, well, stop making trouble. Well, no, it's whoever organized the lunch for them is they cause that. And most teachers, after lunch is the most difficult time and least productive time of the day.
Mm-hmm.
It's the least
Mm-hmm.
productive. And that is one of the reasons why the fatigue. So considering those things that I just mentioned there is really important. And I've seen it in our focus labs. A child came in one day and they had a chiller and they were already drinking it. And I say, oh God. They say, it's okay. I say, go ahead and drink it now. And during the session, as they used the drink, their focus got progressively and progressively worse.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
And
that
this
could
is and
be.
this was recorded
We were
because
doing
they
brain
had
recordings at that time.
yes,
So we
yes.
saw it. So it's not like we see it, we think so. No,
Mm-hmm.
it's not feeling. We saw the data to
and
show it.
that's what I really love about what you do. This is not, well, from my perspective, when I do the multisensory and so on, I can tell parents, based on this one's research and that one's research, and what I've read, and there's a large body of research around it. But in
Mhm.
your case, this is one step further. You can say, look, this is your child's focus because you can actually
Measured.
see it.
Yeah.
So this is not just anecdotal or based on past research. You can
Mhm.
show and demonstrate and see it.
And now parents can have that in their home,
Mm-hmm.
in your home. It's something
Yeah.
that before only the wealthy could think about having, right? But now you can have that in your house. We're in that time in Earth's history where you can. And I think that's also important to note.
Yes, please. So this is the best time, and I think perfect segue into explaining what exactly we have been talking about with these
Yeah,
focus things and the seeing and all these things, and to demonstrate what exactly the program is like so that parents can actually see and understand what you're talking about.
absolutely. So the idea is that if you can measure it, you can manage it. So we record or we track the child, well, the clients, it doesn't always have to be children, the client's
Mm-hmm.
brain activity in real time. And this is one of the devices that we use, right? It's an EEG device.
Mm-hmm.
Let me wipe my forehead so it might be a little greasy, right? So it allows us to track the client's brain activity in real time. Now, it doesn't put anything into their brain, it only listens. So you can think of it like a mic for the brain.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't put anything in, it only listens. And what we do is we say, okay, we take this data, put it into the computer, and then we visualize it so that the child can see it. And if they can see what is happening, they can also control what is happening. Now, parents
Okay.
often ask how, and I'll set up the demo so that you can see. All right, so let me just
Yes.
get this ready.
Yes.
You can probably ask a question or so in the meantime.
Well,
But
what I was thinking in terms of that entire process, you said something there that piqued my interest, and I think is something that we could chat about as well. You said it's not always students, it's not always children, adults too. So this program that you're talking about
yeah,
is not just for primary school students or even secondary school students.
no,
This process of training your focus, adults can do it as well.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Because what happens sometimes, I have a lot of adults come in, and about 20% of our clients are adults. Who's the main concern? Either they have an exam that, or they're preparing to upgrade or something like that. Maybe doing ACC or whatever it is, and they want that kind of support. Or some of them worried about their forgetfulness, like they're forgetting things and stuff like that. They're worried that they have dementia. I have a lot of people come in for insomnia and also anxiety, right? And the techniques that we developed here also benefit all of those things. So we have people
Okay.
who will only sleep in 3 hours for the night, but then
Mm-hmm.
they turn around and they sleep in 9 hours after that, right? We have people who are coming back to students, they're getting 30 and 40% in their tests, and the parents don't know why. They come and they train and they're getting 90s. There's no lessons placed that I know that takes in a short time measured in weeks, right? Time measured in weeks, a child from going from 30 or 40% to 90 something plus percent, because it's not always a educational gap. A lot of times it is a focus gap. You
Mm-hmm.
understand? And
Mm-hmm.
what we need to do is to make sure that's integrated into the educational product or system so that the students get the maximum out of it. And what I noticed, and I'll describe what's going on just now, but what I noticed also is that in the US, in Canada, and in the Caribbean, we have three distinct, very different education systems.
Mm-hmm.
But the average standard five or grade four is around standard five grade, the equivalent across them is 50% across all. So you think, well, it's clearly not this
Wow.
a system issue. You see it, right? And in Trinidad, we spend about $341 million in extra lessons, right? But for 10% improvement in the
Yes.
grade. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what end up happening is, I'm not against lessons, right? I think lessons is great. Extra lessons is great because sometimes there are gaps in the school. But what happens is the lesson teachers effectively just become like pundits, or healers, blessers. You go and sit down in this lessons class, you do well. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh my goodness.
And
Listen, I'm a lessons teacher, right? Let's just full disclosure.
yeah, and that is not something being egregious to them. That's not the point of it. It's just that there's superstition. You see it, right? It is
Mm-hmm.
superstition around it. And what we want to do is to eliminate that so that the lesson teachers could actually cover more work in their class and faster. Because
Yes.
the whole thing is actually stressful for every single person involved because we are asking for something that the person cannot deliver.
Yes.
But what we found
That's
is,
focus.
yeah, exactly. But what we found is when we eliminate the focus issues, everybody wins: teachers, parents, students, etc. So I'm going to come across to the demo. So I'm going to connect my headset. When you log in,
Mm-hmm.
this is what you'll see. I'm going to connect my headset. Ooh, I don't know if I can remember which one I had connected to. Wait, okay, let's see. This one's it. Right. So the headset is now connected. If it's not connected, I'll take it off very quickly. If it's not connected on your head, it'll tell you. So
Okay.
it'll only work if it's in the right way. So you actually don't have a lot of work to get set up. It takes about 10 or 15 minutes max to get set up with this, right?
Okay.
The other thing that we do, and this is the interface that you have, if you literally just click focus training, it'll take your child through every single activity that they need. So you don't have to sit down and be with them every single time. You could support them, of course, but after that, they'll be able to do it for themselves. So I'm going to move actually to something that everybody really enjoys seeing. And this circle here, we call this the focus indicator, right? This circle
Mm-hmm.
here is responding to my brain activity. It is an extreme simplification of what is actually happening. We just make it so children could use it comfortably, right?
Okay.
So this is responding to my brain activity. So the bigger the circle is, the more active my prefrontal cortex is. The smaller the circle is, the less active it is. Now, first we need to know what the PFC is, so the prefrontal cortex is. It's a part of the brain. If you put your hand over your forehead, that's where it is. It's responsible for decision making, prioritizing things, and sequencing, and also attention switching or moving attention from one thing to the next. What you find is a lot of children have issues with all those three things, and that's because they don't know how to regulate that part of their brain. So
Mm-hmm.
decision making, they take long to make decisions, and if they have that issue, they'll take long to finish all their exams.
Mm.
Doing things in sequence, once they have issues with that, their writing is not so great. And then the last one, task switching, that is moving attention from one thing to the next. If that's dysregulated, their mind's jumping around all the time. So what we do is we teach them how to regulate it, in this case, down-regulate it, and I'll show you mine. We are, I'm literally controlling this with my will. And it's not a specific thought that I'm making. So the child will be able to perform this while they do their schoolwork. If you, and the parents who take this and have this in their home, they'll see what I mean. If you take up their phone and they play with it, that circle will get small just so. So now parents have that thing where they could say, if my child could just focus the way they would on their phone, now we could teach them how to do it.
Ah.
And that
Mm-hmm.
is the real
Mm-hmm.
exciting part of this. Now there's
So this
another,
is the control part that you were talking
yes,
about in
exactly.
the earlier part of the discussion. You know, you said that focus is really about controlling the
Mm-hmm.
attention.
That's right. And then the other thing, I'm gonna frame it in another way. So one way was to do with brain function and
Mm-hmm.
affecting the function. So if the circle is small, then my mind is less likely to jump around. All right. Now, if we go on to looking at energetics or energy consumption, we get something even more exciting because the larger the circle is, the more activity there is, which implies the more energy that you're consuming per unit time. The smaller the circle is, the less activity there is, and therefore the less energy you consume per unit time. So if the child learns how to keep their mind in a focused state, it is also a low energy state. So what happens is that the child can work for longer or they can work harder so they don't burn out as much. So people think that the child is lazy. The child's not lazy, they're just exhausted. People think that the
Mm.
child don't want to go and do their work. That's not so. They're just burnt out
You
because they've
know,
been operating in a very high energy state. So they burn up all their energy. But if they're able
yeah.
to do this continually in a low energy state, then they perceive it as being calm and relaxed. And the parent perceives it as the children being obedient, less resistant to doing schoolwork. I think that there is extremely powerful because with this training, the parents reduce the amount of supervision that they have to do with the child consistently.
Yes. You see that the two things that you brought up just now that I really have to focus on because I think they
Yeah.
are critical to understanding how this works and why it's effective. Now, for someone looking on, we might think, we don't understand all of it. I'm seeing, okay, the circle getting wider, and I'm thinking, okay, yeah, your brain is working more. So that's a good thing. But it's not a good thing because focus means controlling and restricting and
Hmm.
having the ability to decide this is what I want to pay attention to and not everything else and all the things that are occupying your energy.
That's right. So, and we move away from that thing, your boss is watching, look busy. You understand? You
Yes,
move away from that, oh, mommy's coming, look busy. No, it's supposed to be a calm state. Like anytime you're doing something that you really enjoy, anytime you're doing something that you really enjoy, your mind is relaxed. Your mind is not wandering off and running all over the place. It's not. So what we're doing is teaching as early as we can that the child that their mind is something to collaborate with, not to fight with. It's something to work
that,
along with.
listen, we need to put that on a t-shirt. Your mind is something to collaborate with, not to fight with. That right there is the reason I am so thrilled that a
Yeah.
program like this exists in Trinidad and Tobago, that we have access to it. I
Yeah.
know you're also connected with centers around the world,
That's right.
but it's
We have
available
a few
here
other
in
countries.
Trinidad and Tobago. Say, yeah, you were saying?
No, I said
How?
yes, and but it's a few countries, a few continents in Africa, in North America, and a few other places. We have South America as well, in Panama. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
at an
go ahead.
affordable rate. And we will talk about that in a little bit. But what is important for me to get parents to understand is that this is not one of those you know do it now, it works now, and next year you're wondering what happened.
Yes, yes, that's true. I like that you mentioned that, right? Because we've built the platform to be their academic companion, right? We've built it to be their companion. Ideally, we want it to be the family companion because what we found is that the academic experience affects the entire family. It's a family event, right? It's
Hmm.
stressful for everybody. So what you said there is extremely important because we set it up so you can have this for all of the academic life for the child in a way that is actually not expensive, right? We'll come to the price in a little bit, but parents for SEA spend at least, well, sorry, not at least, around an average about $50,000, right? That's for math and for creative writing, and it could be a little bit more than that. And the turnaround over the time is the maximum is about 30% improvement. But what we do, because I did some research with we did some market research and stuff like that. But what we do is you pay less than the cost for lessons per session, right? It works out to be like a coffee a day or something like that. Like a no, it's a goat roti a day or something like that.
Yeah, you make it local, make it so
Yeah,
that we can
it's a goat
understand.
roti for the day is what you're spending, and then you get as much as 200% improvement. Now, that might seem kind of
Hmm.
crazy because everything's out of 100%, but what I mean is the child leaves at 30, comes in at 30% and 40%, and a lot of them turn out to be 80s and 90s. So you're looking at students who could get no choice but now can get their first choice. As a matter of fact, our first choice rate for last year, for the past 2 years, is 96%, 96 point something percent, closer to 97%. And in the last year, it was 99%.
So how
And I don't
long
get the
do the
best of
students
both,
have to
right?
do this?
Yeah.
Because no, it sounds fantastic,
Hmm.
but now I'm thinking, okay, so does that mean I have to hook them up to this thing every day for what, an hour? How long does
Okay, yeah,
this
I
take?
understand the
And
question.
how? How,
So
because yes, I think we need to move toward this. So what do I do as a parent?
yeah, so well, it's life. It can be for the lifetime. Number one, so that's the time in terms of how long they can use it. How long till they get an effect? It's usually within about 4 to 6 weeks. You can start seeing an effect. Now we recommend that they train 2 to 3 times for the week. But if they have exams coming up, they could train every day. As a matter of fact, a lot of people, especially the child is highly motivated, they want to train every day because what they're getting is rest for their mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how it's set up is that they have little achievements to get. So it's gamified in a way. So you get points for completion and you get stars for exceeding the things for that particular week, right? And then the
Nice.
parent gets to see at a glance what they need to cover. And we've set up in the back end something called Neuro. She listens. She's basically the computerized or AI trainer. So she says, okay, so Jenny doing well here. Let's make it a little bit harder for Jenny to hone the skill. And then
Ah,
she's not doing well here. Let's make it a little easier and then bring her up, right? So to say more succinctly to what you're saying, to what you asked, the time of a session could be as little as about 20 minutes, but they could stay for as long as they want. The time to effect could be between 4 to 6 weeks for focus, right? And then the time that they spend on it could be, well, we recommend to parents to stay on for about 3 to 6 months, right? Because there's a after they use it, if they stop using it for a certain amount of time, it starts to ebb because we need
mm-hmm.
focus all the time, right? And what they're learning is a
Yes.
skill, and if they don't use the skill, then they end up in a little bit of challenges. But the good thing is that one the skills that they learn while they train here, they can go into the classroom and they could use it. So when you tell your child to focus, you just remind them to use the same training that they did with Allegory online. Does that
Yes.
make sense?
So they're getting a skill,
Yeah.
not necessarily like a product
Yeah. It's not a
itself.
treatment, it's a
Yes,
skill.
it's a skill, so that even, let's say, after they do this the 6 months and they understand how to implement the skill, after that they can exercise on their own,
Yeah, yeah.
exercise their
Yeah,
mind.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, most of the parents opt to just stay because they find that the child is calmer, more relaxed, less anxious. A lot of children have social anxiety, so they're more willing to go out and meet with friends or do stuff, willing to make friends. So there lots of other things that happen. There's one more thing I do want to show, and I'll do it briefly. So this is sort of the harder version of this, right? But we call it an attention to detail exercise. So what
Mm-hmm.
we're doing is building these dual tasks. So one of the challenges that parents have is that they're doing an exam, but instead of writing 312, they write 321. So they write the wrong thing. The working is correct, but they lose the marks, right? So we build activities to actually reduce the likelihood of them making those silly mistakes. So if you know your child makes what we call silly mistakes or errors due to inattention, then they can actually get that help in here, that's built in here. Most of the
Mm-hmm.
marks that are lost are from errors due to inattention. And parents always say, my child's smart, he knows the work. I'm sure you heard that many times. They
Yes,
know the
many,
work,
many times.
yes, but it's the execution because the way that it comes into the mind is translated in the brain and then comes back out on the sheet. That's the process that they don't teach in school. It's called coding. Every single question that has to be answered in life first requires decoding, getting it into the mind, and then processing, and then encoding,
Mm-hmm.
or decoding, encoding, and then processing. You see it, right? Every single question you have to answer in life requires that. Otherwise,
Yes,
you will
yes, yes.
get the answer wrong. And what
Mm-hmm.
we've done on top of, as an extra layer on top of that, is that they have to maintain focus while performing those activities. And something incredibly magical happens after that. When your brain figures out that it could do something at a lower cost, it starts to default to doing it. It's like me telling you, hey, you know what? I'll give you 6 months of your salary, and all you have to do is clap your hand. That's all you have to do. And I say, well, okay, I'll give you a next option. I'll give you 6 months of your salary, but you have to work for 6 months. Everybody will clap their hand, right?
Yes, please.
But we will look at our children and say they're lazy. No, they're human. And every single thing in the universe, hear me out, every single thing in the universe wants to do the least amount of work for the most amount of results. The least amount of work for the most amount of results. And this
Mm-hmm.
training allows them to do that because work is not supposed to break us.
No,
Work is
it's not.
supposed to build
You know,
us. Yeah.
you say that, and from that scientific perspective, it sounds like, yeah, but that's why we have habits. That's why, when we do things often enough, it becomes automatic because the brain is trying to reduce that, the energy and everything to make it least, make it
Yes.
as effortless as possible.
Mhm.
So it's something that happens. It's a fact of life, and we engage with it all the time, but we don't often stop to think about it. And that's the issue. We go
Yeah.
through, and it happens, and it's like we're
Yeah.
living by default. But this is a way that it
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
become
That,
intentional.
yeah, exactly. And not just intentional, but it can become the new default. So
Mm, yes, if you practice it.
there's a conceptual formula that I like to work with, right? It is the probability of something happening is roughly equal to the reward minus the cost. If
Hmm.
the reward is high, as long as the cost is below it, is more probable to happen,
Yes,
right? If the reward is low and the cost is high, then it's less likely to happen. That makes sense, right?
yes,
So you have now the schoolwork. The reward is not necessarily high because the payment is in the future that the child doesn't understand. Because now they're trying to figure out their identity, they're trying to figure out their body, they're trying to figure out all these things. So you're telling me I'm gonna collect something in 20 years when I don't figure out I have a mole on my neck?
yes.
You know what I mean, right? So what we do is
Yeah, yeah.
what we can do is reduce the cost.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I've actually demonstrated how we reduce the cost. It's an energetic cost. So when we reduce the energy cost, it increases the likelihood or the probability of the action actually happening. Now, that makes a very powerful opportunity. And I hope everybody put on the glass of tea and listen to what I'm saying now. When your child completes an activity, their brain releases dopamine. It happens for you on your checklist, and all you had on your checklist was take out the garbage. You know what I mean? And your brain releases dopamine for that. So what
Mm-hmm.
happens is the
Mm-hmm.
child completes the task, their brain releases dopamine, and therefore increases the likelihood of them engaging another task.
Yes.
So you end up in a situation over time where your child is excited to engage work. Now, creative writing teachers have probably, in my opinion, one of the most difficult times, right? I'll explain.
Yes.
Because with math, and that's why a lot of students, oh, good boy, we have so much to talk about. What we'll do is we'll do another part. I hope you invite me back for another part
Oh,
because
yes, please, because I think it's important for parents to understand how they can help and how these things work.
so I parents who have children who hate math, I know why and how to solve it, right? You parent who hated math, I know why. And it's not something that your child inherit. Like you pass it down to your child. I know why, and we can solve it. Right? But I'm gonna come back to what I was saying before. So what you're building are these what I call them competence events.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And your child starts to search for these competence events because they are looking for dopamine kick. Everybody doing it. You doing it as a parent. When you win an argument, you get a dopamine kick. That's why people don't realize when they quarrelsome because they're addicted to dopamine. They don't really want to how to describe it, boy. The effect after the winning is not important. It's the activity of winning and the release
Mm-hmm.
of the dopamine
Mm-hmm.
that's what's important. So people are wrecking their lives because they are addicts to dopamine. And they look at somebody who's a coke addict and they watch them bad, but you're wrecking your whole life quarreling with your husband. Another story, another time. Right? So
Listen, I tell you, we could chat about this forever. We
yeah,
need to
it's
start
lots.
a podcast because
There's lots.
seriously.
There's lots, right? I am going to make that last point that is really important because I know we're running out of time.
Mm-hmm.
The children, because they develop these competence events, they engage schoolwork more and they have a better view of schoolwork. What also happens when you you develop or experience more competence events is that your brain starts to release more serotonin, which is responsible for mood regulation. So what you find is that the children can regulate their moods a lot better. So they're less irritable, they're less anxious. They don't like, oh God, mommy, when they think
Listen,
like that.
and we
Yes.
would all love
Mm-hmm.
that. Please.
Yes. And
So tell us, how do we
because
get this? How? How do we have access
how
to
do
it?
you get that is common train with allegory. And like there's no
Mm-hmm.
short answer to that, right? I said other things about their diet and stuff like that, but
Mm-hmm.
common train, it makes a big difference, right? I'm confident in that, right? We will work it through to make sure that your child is successful. That's our mission, right? And we
Mm-hmm.
don't sleep unless we're doing that.
So then
Okay.
how do we get in touch with you, and what was the process? Because I'm seeing you wearing that headset. So I'm
Yes,
presuming
I
that
realize I
there's
talk all
an
this time and I tell people how to do that. So you can get access to our programs from the Allegory website. It's allegory.org.
I'm gonna let me put the link. I'll put the link in the chat and I'll share it in the group. And certainly, group members, there have been posts in the group about Allegory. You can just search the group for Allegory and you will get the information there. But
Yeah.
I'll put it up again.
Yeah, and it's Allegori. You'll see it in the link when it's sent.
Mm-hmm.
Allegori.org, and you'll be able to sign up. Just go to the student one. It's $469 for the month for unlimited sessions. You will be required
Mm-hmm.
to get a headset at a separate cost. We have something very special for the people from this group, right? When you see what it is, you'll be very excited. I just don't want to give it away right now, but I do. If you have questions, you can also reach out to us through our Facebook group. But what we're hoping that can be done is that all of the members of this group, we bring who want to come on, of course, we put it together as a joint plan. So because it's a larger group, you end up getting something really good. Get something for being in this group, right? More than just what's happening in there. So yes, hopefully that's made some sense. Reach out to us. You have a number for me. I'll give it to you now. They'll put it there as well. 739-8418. That's 739-8418. And you'll be able to message
739. I'm putting it in the chat as you
or
speak.
8418
Mm-hmm.
and reach out via WhatsApp is the better place to do so. All right. That's the
So
best.
WhatsApp contact.
Yeah. Or contact your group admin and they'll put your name on a list and we'll work it out from there. All right. You can just message on WhatsApp if you have questions, but make sure you talk with your group admin because I think because of them bringing this to you, they should also experience the value of it and the joy of this too. And because we all win when we help out each other. Yeah. I had a
All
good
right.
time.
So
Thanks for having me.
you need to come back because we haven't spoken about the sleep part of the program. We
Yeah.
haven't spoken about that math thing that you said because hey, I tell people I'm an English teacher. Don't ask me any maths questions, please.
Yeah. And you'll understand why when you come. And
Yeah. So
in
there's that.
Allegory Online, that's built in. That
Mhm.
problem that people have with math, we have a program built into the platform just for that. Mhm.
Yes, that is awesome. So I put the contact and um one of the things that I have to say because I am so completely sold on this program, I am getting involved and I am going to be setting up a focus lab using the allegory system at my office in Quebec because this is something that I'm going to use for me. I'm getting my kids involved and I want to make it available because I know there is a cost involved with the headset and the subscription. So having a center, if that would allow somebody to use the center and reduce the cost a little bit in terms of the headset, then that is an opportunity as well. So please contact, you could message me. The information is in the group. I've put it up under this presentation, this video. So the link will be there. And there are also other details in the group about Allegory and how to contact Allegory. And when you do, please, if you contact Allegory directly, please ensure that you let them know that you're a member of SEA Peacefield. So you would also need to contact myself or Giselle the admins and let us know that you've contacted Allegory, because they will check in with us to confirm that you're a member, because there is a special benefit if you're joining the program. And I don't want to say if, when you join the program, because parents, take what I'm telling you. This is not something that it's not a fad. You've heard the statistics. This is data driven. So we're not talking theoretical. This is what we think will happen.
Yeah.
Keston is giving you facts and details from working with parents
Mm-hmm.
and telling you what happened with them and their children. He also works with adults. So if you yourself, you're having some challenges with focus, with sleep, with anxiety, this is something for you too. So it's not just a one-time thing. It's not just a, one situation thing. This is something that actually changes your life. Sleep is critical. I mean, anybody who loses sleep could tell you the kind of malfunction that happens when you lose sleep. Imagine being able to sleep well, get the rest that you need, and all those things. So please reach out to us, reach out to Allegory, get the information you need, because this is something that is going to make a huge and lasting impact. So, for those of you who were able to stay through the whole presentation, I know it's a time in the day when most people are at work and at school, and no worry about it. You would get the information. If you're watching the replay, thank you so much. I'm going to put notices again and again to remind people to look at this particular replay,
Yeah.
so that they can also access the information, the service, the strategies, and the support that comes from accessing a neuroscientist. Listen, we have our own neuroscientist in this group now, okay? I think that's like the best that you could ever get, and the kind of support that's coming. I really, really appreciate it. So thank you, Keston, for your time. And we would make an arrangement and see when we can come back and have another conversation, so that we can give the parents as many resources and access as they would need to help their children and themselves.
Thank you
So
so much.
thank you again, guys. Is there anything you want to say, closing off, final words, before I end?
Yeah. I really believe that the future of our education system is going to change and rapidly. And I really want this to be something that is accessible. We dedicated to that. It's not just a business. I want to make money. We have that goal in mind as something
Mhm.
that will be regional and as far as possible global. So when you come on, that is also what you're joining. So I just want to make sure everybody knows that as well.
Oh, yes. So big things coming up, and we will be chatting several times again. So thank you very much again, Keston. And for those of you who are around looking at the replay, we really appreciate it. Send your questions, send your comments. The contact is in the group. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Enjoy your weekend. And until we see you again next week, Friday, take care.